Good evening, everyone. Uh, So let us start our Cognon class 5 to 6. So far, we have completed up to Aphorism 45. We are in the journey of knowing about the concept given by Dr. Hahnemann in the Organ of Medicine. We completed the anatomy of organ, then prefaces, contents, different prefaces, introduction by James Cross, introduction by the author, and then we started with the doctrinal part of the aphorisms. In that, three important points to be learned. Apart from the very first, where who is a physician, what is his aim, what are his objectives, how to achieve his aim and objectives, and what is the blueprint of case checking. Like this, we reached the point knowledge of disease. In the knowledge of disease, we learned the blueprint of case checking and the dynamic concept of the disease. And then we learned the concept how to know about power of medicines. Then regarding the law applied, what should be the therapeutic law? We are into that part. What should be the law? We learned in Aphorism 22 that there should be two: law of similia or law of contraria. Law of contraria was discussed, and law of allopathy was also discussed in respect of dissimilar diseases meet together. And then now we are discussing the similar diseases meet together. So let's have this aphorism 46. If we see the contents aphorism 46 tells us something very special thing. It tells that what kind of examples we are going to have regarding the law of similia in aphorism 46. It says instances means examples of chronic diseases being cured by the accidental accession of another similar but stronger disease. Mind it. It is the instances of chronic diseases. And if we see the example, we will be able to understand that what kind of diseases, like long-standing blindness or long-standing swelling, long-standing conjunctivitis, they are cured by the accession of smallpox or measles or cowpox, like this. So you can just review your examples again and see how that chronic disease, they were cured of the natural disease or the kind of inoculation or vaccination. So we did up to some 5 examples. Let us just start with the sixth example. The sixth example says smallpox coming on after vaccination, as well on account of its greater strength as its great similarity, at once removes entirely the cowpox homeopathically and does not permit it to come to maturity. But on the other hand, the cowpox, when near maturity, does, on account of great similarity, homeopathically diminish very much the supervening smallpox and make it much milder, as Murray and many others testify. And we discussed last time also this example, but then it needs little elaboration. The word milder has a asterisk. Asterisk means some another footnote here, which is just see below in the footnotes. A new footnote is added here in the sixth edition as follows regarding this. What is this footnote? This seems to be the reason for the beneficial, remarkable fact, namely that since the journal distribution of Jenner's cowpox vaccination, human smallpox never again appeared as epidemically or virulently as 40 to 50 years before, when one city visited lost at least one half and often three quarters of the children by death of this miserable pestilence. So I told here in the last class some couple of days back that it needs some elaboration. Elaboration in respect of Dr. Jenner. Elaboration in respect of the words used, inoculation, vaccination, and all these words. And of course, what is the story of Jenner? A little bit of discussion is necessary on these important points. Though I will try to put a link in the description of the video to know more details about it. I just tell you some brief points on this regard. First of all, you can notice that just see the first example. How frequently does smallpox produce violent ophthalmia, sometimes even causing blindness? And see, by its inoculation, at times Hahnemann used the word inoculation, and in the example 6, he is using the word vaccination. So when he is using two different words, they sometimes seems that they are exchangeably used words, but then we must understand the meaning first. What is that? So let us just stop this example here and have the understanding of all these things. It will be going to make us uh, very much aware to understand these examples. So if I tell you, let us start with the Jenner. Who was Jenner? Jenner's full name is Edward Jenner. And this man, he was a proper doctor going under the uh, learnings of surgery of that time. And that time's very famous surgeon, John Hunter, he was almost taking all the tutorials and the learnings from him. And he gave him in those one understanding that don't think, try. This is the this is the phrase or the kind of words used by William Harvick, the one who make us known about the circulation of the blood in the history of medical sciences. So he used to say, and his words, John Hunter told him that don't think, try. It is something related to what Hammond says that don't simply argue, no such arguments, no such logical explanations. Experience, experiment, and experience. So people were there having the similar thoughts, but they were diversified in their fields and they were in the different places and they were doing different things. When reached to his understanding and working of the medicine in 1796, Edward Jenner, he some internet issue. Are you finding this? I hope it should be all right now. Can you hear me now? Well, Can you hear me? No? Just let me know. Okay. So, Edward Jenner, he came across some milkmaid, some persons who were doing in the countryside the milking of the cows and distributing, selling to the different nearby cities. You know it well that Edward Jenner belongs to a small town of London. And because of being in small town, he came across with such milkmen. And those days, this smallpox was rampant in the Europe, including the London. That milkman used to say that this disease is not going to affect us. He inquisitively found out that why milkman is saying so. Then he came to know from the milkman that because the cows, they suffer with some pox disease named as cowpox, and we get that infection, and it is of a very mild in nature. So we have this, so smallpox will not come to us. And it was true also in such situations. Now, what he did, he said that cows are suffering with smallpox. Then, in that case, when cows are suffering with this kind of disease, should be cool. Just give me a moment, please. So, when Edward Jenner came to know about this, he said cows are suffering with a kind of pox. He named it as Variola of cows. That you are knowing that those days the most international language was Latin, Greek, all these languages, and new terms in the medicine, whether for a disease or for anything, was coined from these languages only. Even Master Hahnemann has very well utilized these languages in a very apt manner. So he named it as smallpox of the cow, and better utilize this smallpox of the cow with the smallpox of the human being. Not exactly the smallpox of the cow, but he named it as variola of cows. So he did that. The children, first child on which he tried this was James Phipps, and he found very encouraging results. And he tried the same uh, many children, and the best part was that he just simply not did this. He rather continued working on this and taking this practice, this usage of cowpox disease to cure and to prevent the smallpox in the humans. And proceed he proceeded towards writing a paper, moving it to the Royal Society of Medical Doctors, and ultimately it became a real practice in the whole Europe and the other countries wherever it was rampant. So he made this treatment, this method of treatment, this method of prevention recognizable, though initially he was very badly criticized, but he did not leave the platform, he did not leave the grit, he did not yield to the society, especially the people from the church. They were criticizing him that because in the church the understanding is that human being is a holy creature. How can you put a disease of a animal to this holy creature of the nature, human being, like this? But then nothing survived, and it became the most popular practice. And ultimately, the result is this, that this disease is completely eradicated. If you see this footnote, Hahnemann says that we do not see any instance of epidemic of smallpox thereafter when Jenner made it a public distribution. And it was the Jenner, Edward Jenner, who named it as vaccine. What do you mean by vaccine? Again, vaccine is a Latin word. It comes from vecca. Vecca means cow. So it is the word vaccine, and the doing the process is called vaccination. He named it after the cow. Means if you know the word vaccination, it is a process which we learn from the cow. Means it is a historical importance it contains in this word. If you go in the word inoculation, what is inoculation? Simply, inoculation is a word which means grafting. You know the grafting, it comes from the horticulture, this word. When you just graft one piece of the plant to the other piece of the plant, you mostly do it in the uh, rose plant, and many, many more. So it comes from that inoculation. So in inoculation, mostly inoculation is known just simply with the word that from the smallpox part, that serum of the smallpox, lymph or the serum of the smallpox, that is being taken and made a cut to the person, and they just put that lymph into that. Like simply some needles, if you take some lancet, if you take, you just cut it, take the lymph, and then directly you just put it there. Grafting, you are grafting the smallpox lymph from the affected person to the non-affected person. This is a inoculation, where Hahnemann is using the word inoculation in the first example. That means the smallpox is inoculated. It is the same which is inoculated. But what Jenner did, he did inoculation of one different disease, cowpox, for the purpose of different disease in the humans, that is smallpox. That is also a inoculation. But Edward Jenner named it as vaccination. Since he named it as vaccination, Hahnemann is using the vaccination, and I told you the vaccination word has come from vecca. Vecca means cow. Means you are reminded that what is being done. And then thereafter, the scientific community, when they really developed this branch of vaccine and vaccination, then they broadened the term vaccination, and all those antitoxins and different kind of active immunization, active vaccinations, and passive vaccination, everything clubbed together and now known as a branch of vaccination. Right. So I think that the Jenner's viewpoint only is that he wanted to tell about his work, that how my work came into the being. It came into the being from the cow. So he just made it very clear with the name. And that is how Hahnemann utilized the word vaccination. Now, a small point to be understood. It is not that it is all thought by Jenner only. So far, we were thinking that it was the only Jenner who thought of, who did it, and who made it so recognized. No. If you go into the history, you will find many places where physicians were doing same kind of vaccination. But then they were doing it for themselves, for their patients, for their localities, and then they did not bother to make it a scientific paper, to make a scientific inquiry, to make it a understanding and telling things to the society, to the administration, to the government, and make it a complete branch for the purpose of prevention or treatment. No, they did, and they just forgot. That's it. So many of the physicians, you will find so many of the histories that at that place, at this place, they took this serum of the cowpox from the udders of the cow, and they cured many, and they prevented many, saved life of many children. But the credit goes to Edward Jenner. Why? Because he made it recognized in the society, and he is the one will be known for this whole branch of vaccination, because then, after so much of criticism, it is now very well accepted. It is going on. We only look forward. We are looking forward for this. So like this is a very small understanding, a story about this Edward Jenner vaccine, inoculation, and all these things. So any points left now? If you just want to know a little bit of smallpox, a disease which is which was first, as far as the record goes, first came in Africa some 10,000 years back. Then it traveled from there to the Asia, and then traveled to the Europe. In 5th and 6th, 5th or 7th century AD, it reached to the Europe and became such a serious disease. And it is a airborne infection, viral kind of airborne infection. And it is affecting the children most. That is why Hahnemann says in this footnote that wherever village this disease is coming, it will kill most of the children of that village. Most of the children of that village. And it is named as smallpox. Pox means like pockets, like some kind of, you can say, sac developed. I think every one of you have seen those small marks on the face. We commonly call it as pox mark. Means sacs. Some kind of sacs developed. Some kind of ulceration developed. They are healed ulcers, of course. And because the presentation is such, at the looks you see such kind of marks, and they are small one, not really the big one. So it is named as smallpox, also called variola. It is a very important to understand the word variola. Variola, again a Latin word which is coming ultimately from varus. Varus means stained, Virus means marks. See how that we were not knowing it is some virus. Even by the time Jenner developed this vaccination, he might also not knowing exactly that it is some virus, because it is almost a similar time. Jenner tried this 1796 and came to know and made a hypothesis, this way this smallpox can be prevented. And in the 1796, after the China experiment and everything which was done in 1790, and Hahnemann made a hypothesis and published a paper on this, that this can be another way of treatment, successful treatment. And he wrote a paper published in Hoofland Journal, we all know, in 1796. This 1796 is an important year that in Europe, somewhere in Germany and somewhere in London, that the light of the law of similia was glowing. Maybe only Hahnemann understood, but Jenner could not understood this point. And nobody was knowing those days any bacteria and all, but then all understandings, yes, something is there like this. Virus, hardly, I don't think, hardly anyone thought of it, about the virus. Maybe smaller than bacteria creature responsible for the disease, I think, was not really thought of. So, even not knowing, they were able to develop a vaccine. Now, what point I just want to make is that variola is a word in which they say that it leaves a mark. Now, you see, a unknown virus, we are not knowing it, but it was known with the marks, stain. This is the similar understanding Hahnemann want to make us known in respect of miasms. Miasm again means like this, that some stain, that it is leaving some marks. Some diseases came and they left the mark. All diseases do not leave marks. All diseases do not stain. He said it's a group of diseases named together because according to the mark, which are non-venereal, coming in under one group named as Sora, which mainly affects nerves. And then another group is, which is subdivided into two, the venereal kind of marks. Hahnemann made the understanding on the basis of marks, the stain, signs and symptoms, the effects. That is something, a very good understanding, which is very well connected here with this. So, having this small story understood, let us go ahead with the example and read again the example number 6. Smallpox coming on after vaccination, as well on account of its greater strength as its great similarity. Whenever the smallpox in the human being has come, and then vaccination of cowpox given that time, because smallpox is more stronger than the cowpox initial phase. That moment, smallpox overpowers the cowpox. But suppose somebody is not infected with the smallpox so far and given cowpox vaccination, what happens in that? It takes a maturity. It is when it is taking a maturity, this vaccination, with that, what is going to happen? Ultimately, in the later phase, at the maturity level, the cowpox becomes much more powerful than the smallpox. Hence, Smallpox cannot come, or if it has come very near by that time of the second means the maturity stage of cowpox, then it will be very mild or it will just go away. This is the example he is going to tell us here. Smallpox coming after vaccination, as well as on account of its greater strength, as its great similarity, at once removes entirely the cowpox homeopathically and does not permit it to come to maturity. But on the other hand, the cowpox, when near maturity, does, on account of its great similarity, homeopathically diminish very much the supervening smallpox and make it much milder, as Murray and many others testify. And here, that footnote I read about the Jenner's cowpox vaccination. I read it again. This seems to be the reason for this beneficial, remarkable fact, namely that since the journal distribution of Jenner's cowpox vaccination, human smallpox never again appeared as epidemically or virulently as 40 to 50 years before, when one city visited by the disease lost at least one half and often three quarters of children by death of this miserable pestilence. It was so virulent. Now, in the footnotes, you're seeing all these footnotes here, and you are finding these footnotes in a different languages. They are the titles of the journals and the books in their own language, maybe German or whatever. If you want to know them exactly, the English translation, I would just refer you all to read from the O'Reilly translation. That is Venda Brewster O'Reilly translation published by Dr. Beecher. This is a sixth edition translation of the Organon of Medicine by Venda Brewster O'Reilly, published by Beecher Publishers. So you will get all the English translations of these words in the other examples, other references given in the footnote. Going to the next example, the inoculated cowpox, whose lymph, besides the protective matter. Now, when Hahnemann is saying inoculated cowpox, these are the words of Hahnemann. And he is telling when that vaccination is done, whose lymph, besides the protective matter, contains the contagion of a general cutaneous eruption of another nature. It's a very important point because this is the observation of Hahnemann, and it was not at all the observation of Jenner, or if anybody noticed, no such reference we find here. It is the very original observation by the Master Hahnemann that when you are inoculating cowpox, it contains two things. One is that protective matter. You can say now in today's language that exactly the virus. And with that, there is another material, another lymph material. And that very lymph material, other than he says, besides the protective matter, contains the contagion of a general cutaneous eruption of another nature. Another fluid which is there, it has its own effects. What kind of effects? It is producing a kind of skin eruptions. Hahnemann described here the type of skin eruptions. We will read that. Now, when somebody is taking this vaccination, after this inoculation is done, those who are getting the maturity of this vaccination, Hahnemann named it as that vaccination is taken. Taken is the word which is being used here, we will read, which means that vaccination is received by the body system, and with that, body system has reacted back. Means when if you inoculate this somewhere, it will produce a small kind of pox marks, which proves that vaccination is taken, means that vaccination got the maturity. So when this is happening, apart from giving the protection from the disease of smallpox, it is producing a very different, peculiar kind longer time with such kind of skin eruptions. Because of the similarity of this manifestation, the symptoms, but then children have it because of some other reasons, do not know. But then because of this cowpox vaccination and that additional lymph is there apart from that virus, the protective matter, and able to produce certain skin eruptions, it is curing those kind of eruptions. This is the whole understanding. Let me read, you will be understanding it much better. The inoculated cowpox, whose lymph, besides the protective matter, contains the contagion of a general cutaneous eruption of another nature, consisting of usually small, dry pimples, and it is rarely large and pustular. Small, dry pimples resting on a small red areola means the skin below is red, and on that there's a papule, or you can say a pimple, and that is a mostly dry, and very rarely it is large and pustular, frequently conjoined with round red cutaneous spots. Means with that, apart from that areola, nearby that there are red spots. You can say the macular eruptions. When you say spots, means it is not raised above the skin. When you say pimple, that means it is definitely raised above the skin, and often accompanied by a most violent itching. Dry pimple resting on a red areola with red macular rash having very severe itching, which rash appears in not a few children several days before, more frequently, however, after the red areola of the cowpox, and goes off in few days, leaving behind small red hard spots on the skin. They remains when vaccination is taken. The inoculated cowpox, I say, after it has taken, cures perfectly and permanently in a homeopathic manner by the similarity of this accessory mechanism. Analogous cutaneous eruptions of the children, often of a very long standing and of a very troublesome character, as a number of observers assert. Now go back to the contents, and he says that in 46 we find so many of the examples, the cure of the chronic diseases. It is the chronic kind of cutaneous eruption of the children of similar variety. They are being cured after the vaccination is taken and the side effects developed. In that, when side effect developed, children was already having such kind of eruptions. In this side effect, they actually cured it, and many physicians of those days, they observed it, and it was the Hahnemann who made a point here in reference to the similar disease meet together. What happens? Cures. The stronger one cures the weaker one. Now going to the next example. I hope this is clear to you. Any point you can just put a question here. The cowpox, next example 8. The cowpox, a peculiar symptom of which is to cause, one point here remains in the aphorism 7. He is using a word accessory mechanism. What is this accessory mechanism? As I told you, The side effects of the vaccination means accessory. So there are many varieties of mism have been talked. The chronic mism, the acute mism, the half spiritual mism. So among those types, another variety is accessory mism. The peculiar effects, peculiar stain as a side effect by the vaccination. That is called accessory mism. So what we call as vaccinosis, which one doctor named it as vaccinosis, Hahnemann named it as accessory mism. Going to the next example, 8. The cowpox, a peculiar symptom of which is to cause tumefaction of the arm, cured after it broke out a swollen, half paralyzed arm. A kind of cold swelling, tumefaction. When somebody suffered with cowpox, he was also suffering already, with the swollen, half paralyzed. It was swelling as well as paralysis. So tumefaction is this swelling and kind of paralysis, which has been cured. Like this, another example, if we see the fever accompanying cowpox, which occurs at the time of the production of red areola, cured homeopathically intermittent fever in two individuals, as the younger Hardage reports, confirming what John Hunter, has already observed, that two fevers, similar diseases, cannot coexist in the same body. So you can just make out that all these kind of diseases, cowpox, smallpox, measles, they are also known as exanthematous fevers because they produce fever as well as some kind of skin eruptions. So the kind of fever cowpox is producing, it is matching with the intermittent fever. Those days, we were not knowing intermittent fever because of any kind of parasite, malaria. And there are other conditions where you get intermittent fever. The presentation, the marks is the effect is the stain is intermittent fever. A fever where you get at a interval, fever at a interval. In that condition, there are certain cases seen by many authorities, especially he is referring the very well-known authority of previous days, contemporary of or the teacher of Edward Jenner, John Hunter. He himself observed such kind of cure because the weaker one is getting extinguished by the stronger one. Now, in this uh, example 9, what we just now understood, having a footnote saying footnote 3. Footnote 1, footnote 2 are the references, and footnote 3 says the examples adduced in this place in the former editions of the Ognon, except the last, of chronic maladies cured by the itch, can, according to the discoveries of the explanations I had given in the first part of my book on chronic diseases, be looked upon as only in a certain degree of the cures. So we will read about it and discuss on this footnote a little later. So another example, example number 10, says the measles bear a strong resemblance in the character of its fever and cough to the whooping cough. And hence it was that Busquilon noticed in an epidemic where two these affections prevailed that many children who then took measles remained free from the whooping cough during that epidemic. They could all have been protected from and rendered incapable of being infected by the whooping cough is that, and all subsequent epidemics by the measles, if the whooping cough were not a disease, that is only a partial similarity to the measles. That is to say, if it had also a cutaneous eruption similar to what the later possesses, as it is, however, the measles can but preserve a large number from whooping cough homeopathically, and that only in epidemic prevailing at that time. So, another example he says is giving a very good comparison of whooping cough and the measles. Measles has got a kind of skin macular eruptions. Mind it, it's a macular eruptions, means they are the like spots like eruptions. It is not that raised eruptions, and has got a fever and kind of running nose and all those important symptoms. So whooping cough also along with the cough has got a certain kind of fever, and because it is very similar, it is not same means there are some symptoms which are not really matching. It is not same, it is similar. So on the ground of those symptoms of fever and skin eruptions which is being seen in the whooping cough also apart from the cough, and being measles is stronger than the whooping cough, this has been seen. Those who are suffering with measles will not suffer with whooping cough. So this is a very important example to be understood. Last example, number 11. If, however, the measles come in contact with the disease, resembling in its chief symptom the eruption, it can indisputably remove and effect a homeopathic cure of the latter. Thus, a chronic herpetic eruption was entirely and permanently, but means homeopathically, cured by the breaking out of the measles as Cottom observed, an excessively burning miliary rash on the face, neck, arms that had lasted 6 years and was aggravated by every change of weather on the invasion of measles assumed the form of a swelling of the surface of the skin. After the measles has run its course, the exanthem was cured and returned no more. So it is with the principal symptom of the measles. He is giving two examples. One is the herpetic eruptions. They are very, in the herpes you will find some kind of raised vesicular eruptions, but then in the measles it is not exactly that one, but then definitely it is giving the skin a very red kind of situation and itching. So on that basis, measles has cured some cases of the herpes, and a miliary rash, which is almost similar like the measles, and the patient was suffering for many years, suffered with measles. Measles finished the course. Also, with finishing the course, it finished the problem of that patient suffering with that kind of rash. So, like this, we find many examples here in this aphorism 46, some 11 examples, some good important history regarding the genre, regarding the understanding of the word vaccine, regarding the understanding of the word variola, and also inoculation. Maybe these are old terms, but then we really need the understanding for better knowing the medicinal languages, because in our literature at many places the olden language is used and we sometimes mistake understanding them. So these are the examples we got in respect of what happens when two similar diseases meet together. Nothing happens, only one condition happens. No such three conditions like when two similar diseases meet together. Only one condition. The stronger one will extinguish the weaker one. That's it. This is what Hahnemann wanted to make us understand. If this is happening in the nature, if it is happening in the natural diseases. Why don't you do it the same? Nature is teaching you the law. This is the therapeutic law of the nature. This is the homeopathic law. What we all are doing is nothing but this law we are practicing. So, with this understanding, we will be taking this footnote in the next class. For today, let us just try to make us understand this aphorism 46 with all those examples. And next class, we will be discussing the remaining portion of the footnotes. Any questions, you can write me. Thank you very much, everyone. We see you in the next class on Wednesday, 5 to 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone.